This is the Go Radio Business Show with TryWire.com.
Tom, another fine day in the Gorbals.
Morning, Willie. It's a beautiful day in the Gorbals.
So, since last week, few things been happening. Big announcements, big tech. We'll start off with the big news for London this week was the huge tech conference in London, which was opened by Keir Starmer.
Yeah.
And he stood up to wax lyrically about how London and England and Scotland and the whole of the UK could be at the forefront of AI and technology. And guess what happened?
What?
The tech broke down. The teleprompter stopped working and a guy ran on with a paper copy speech.
Paper copy.
So, to all the tech geniuses out there, it was only a wee ploy. It was a kid on, right? The tech broke down. I couldn't believe it. But to be fair, a lot of great stuff from it. Big companies going to invest
Fantastic.
in the UK. And we need more of that.
So I was really encouraged that he was a Prime Minister speaking up about business, having a vision for AI in our country, and he managed to get probably one of the hottest guys just now, the founder of NVIDIA, which makes the chips for the graphics, etc. Who's right. I mean, the company's got $1 trillion valuation, and Jensen Huang, I think I might get the pronunciation
No, you're spot
on. He came and shared the podium with Keir.
Yes.
So, and he was talking up Britain as well.
Yes.
He was saying behind the USA and China, Britain is the third best for AI, for technology talent. But he did say we need to invest in our infrastructure.
Yeah.
So hopefully Keir and his team were listening. But hey, full marks.
But on that, Tom, we've been talking about it for the last few weeks, and we've had a few people on who know more about it than me and you, talking about data centres. And I couldn't believe it this week when I was actually seeing the amount of power that they do need, right?
Yeah.
And I seen the guy this week, I think he was from Amazon, I'm sure it was Amazon, talking about that and what they need, right? And he was telling us, like, you would need, like, a nuclear reactor on your own, right, to do one data centre.
Yeah.
Right, this is scary, absolutely scary.
it's-
Where's the investment going to come from?
I mean, this power that's required is unbelievable.
Yeah.
And we talked about it on the show. Well, we talk about it all the time, how the UK has got the highest energy costs of any developed nation in the world.
Yeah.
And I did ask if somebody could explain it, and somebody has sent me something, but I'm going to have to take time to read it, Willie.
Yeah.
It's quite complicated.
Yeah.
But track the energy costs.
Yeah.
And, you know, we live in the land of wind
Yeah.
and the land of tidal and the land of hydropower. Surely to goodness, we can do better and reduce our energy costs. You talk about it every week. And I actually saw it's somebody like that I really like on the TV called Simon Reeve, and he was over in Norway.
Yeah.
And it's a brilliant thing to talk about the power, how they've managed to go with hydrocarbons and renewables, how they've got the biggest sovereign wealth fund in the world, bigger than the Saudis, etc.
Yeah.
And similar sized country to Scotland.
Yes. But this was always Alex Salmond's argument.
Yeah.
You know, the Norwegian sovereign fund that all came for the oil. And he was saying if Scotland had won back then, whether that was the case or not. But my problem with this whole thing is that this gentleman who was on the TV from one of the big four, right, is talking about the power that they need. We actually need that power at the moment for houses.
Yes.
Right. And my worry is we've got the next big leap in technology is going to require power like we have never seen. So it's coming at the wrong time when we're looking for new power. It's great to see the UK this week have agreed there's a new nuclear power station, 14.7 billion investment. Yes, yesterday.
So where's that going to be?
Down south, hopefully somewhere safe at the tip of the country somewhere.
Right.
But I think that at a time when I seen this expert on the TV the other day talking about what they need for the AI boom, I was like, no, that's what you need. Right, what we need at the moment is a wee bit more power.
Yep.
Right, and so we need all the things that we've talked about, tidal, hydro, all the things, wind, solar, everything. There should be, this whole thing should be on power and not just power for data centres.
Well, I think we should get, after the summer, we should get Professor Sir Jim MacDonald back on, because he's now chairman of Scottish Enterprise and he sits on the board of Scottish Power.
Yes.
And he's a power engineer.
Yes.
So nobody better to talk about that than him.
I had dinner with him last night.
Good man.
In another great Glasgow establishment, the Whole Wong.
The Whole Wong.
There's other restaurants in
Right.
Glasgow, but I've got no doubt that he would be delighted to come on once he's got his feet under the table after the summer.
Brilliant.
So last week we mentioned Rangers, right? And in Glasgow, you've got to get the balance.
You mentioned Rangers,
right?
yes.
So this week there's a huge story that Snoop Dogg wants to open a hamburger stall or a dog stall at Celtic Park to feed the faithful.
Well, can you name a Snoop Dogg song?
No. No, I couldn't.
Okay. Anyway.
So
he wants to put a burger,
yes.
a burger stall. Now, you and I go back a long way.
Yeah.
Because I had a hamburger stall outside the Brothers pub in Saracen.
And I owned it.
And you owned it.
Yeah.
And we didn't know each other then. I think that was 1982.
Yeah.
I was selling burgers outside your pub.
Yes.
In Possil.
I think then I didn't own it. I owned it probably 10 years later.
Did you? Right, okay.
And I've got to say to you, I didn't know I owned it. I bought a group of pubs and that was one of them.
Right, okay.
Right. So, but Snoop Dogg, so I think that's what it should be called. Get your Snoop Dogs here rather than your hot dogs here. No, I mean, I'm going to write to him and say there's a brand IP there that I'm looking for payment for.
So how does Snoop Dogg want to open a burger van at Parkheath? Come on.
What happened is some of the Celtic community that made its way to LA, one day someone gave him a strip. It's just like, you don't believe it, Tom. The president of Albania is a huge Celtic fan. So he sits in his office with Celtic strip on, come on the hoops and hail, hail. So there's got this political influence, and obviously this influence in Hollywood and in the music sector. Celtic have got obviously Snoop Dogg now really interested. So Rangers have got the 49ers and Celtic have got Snoop Dogg. Big American influence across the two big Glasgow clubs.
So, and I saw this and I didn't quite know what it was, but you'll tell me that Snoop Dogg is a big pal of Hoopy Hound.
Yes.
What and who is Hoopy Hound?
No, I can tell you who Hoopy Hound is. Hoopy Hound is the Celtic mascot.
Ah,
right. And the
got
kids love it. The kids and so do some of the adults, but they don't confess to it.
So welcome to Go Radio's children's show today for this. But anyway.
So no, hold on. I'm going to change my IP name now. It's the Hoopy Snoopy Dogs. That's the ones we mustard.
It must be getting close to the holidays because Willie's jokes are getting worse. But anyway, and any Rangers supporters who want to put forward any fast food outlets are welcome on the show. So here's my big disappointment of the week, Willie.
Yeah.
Because we record this and we sometimes miss the thing when it goes out on a Sunday. So the fight between Musk and Trump was just getting going as we finished our recording. And I thought, yes, here we go. Full square go. In the car park, rolling about, and then it stopped. Now, there was some pretty big insults thrown. Musk said Trump was on Jeffrey Epstein list. Oh, my God. That list has got to come out, actually, so we do see who's on it. Steve Bannon, who is Trump's attack dog, said he was going to deport Elon Musk. He was an illegal alien to the country.
Yeah.
Trump then said he would save money by cancelling all the contracts that Musk's rockets had, and then it stopped. Yeah. Now, Willie, do you think it's stopped forever, or are we going to get more juice here?
Well, what happened was, you will know this, you will understand it better than MD. Huge investors in Elon Musk's businesses in Tesla and SpaceX all ran to cameras. Bill Ackman, Peter Thiel,
I know Bill,
right, who all rushed out and says, hold on a minute, guys, time for a truce, let's calm down. So somebody must have said to Elon, because I see that he took the tweet down about Epstein file, somebody said to him, you will be ruined, there'll only be one winner here. Right, but imagine the president of the US openly threatening you, right? You know, I've done a lot of good for Elon, right? I don't know what that was. Elon spent 300 million getting him to the White House. So it'll be interesting. But I think it looks like it's going to fade away. But you know, like Elon is, he'll be sitting at 2 in the morning having a puff on something, and then he'll tweet something else that will create a riot. But I'm going to say to you, I think this is going to have a major effect on the valuations of all of Elon Musk businesses.
Tesla was down 14%. Yeah. That's billions of dollars. And, you know, Musk actually put out a tweet, and he didn't take this one down, saying, I got you in the White House. Yeah. My God. Yeah. So I love a fight. So I don't like to fight myself, but I love to see other people fight like that. So I really hope there's a long way to run in this. Yeah. So another friend of the show, David Molesdale, he's invested in what's called the Cali, Springburn. Yeah. And some great news there for Gibson Engineering, the guys he's backed. Yeah. They've got a big contract from TfL, Transport for London. And David was telling me that it's a really hard contract to get. Transport for London are tough negotiators. David's a tough negotiator. But good news for Springburn. Good news for engineering jobs, about 40 jobs, new jobs for this, Willie. So, got to be good news.
If you add that to what we talked about last week now, right? So we've got the Renaissance with BAE and Thales and all these people on the Clyde. So, you know, the Prime Minister's up here last week talking about hundreds of billions potentially getting invested in obviously the war effort, or hopefully stopping the war effort. And then we've got this, so shipbuilding coming back, huge, you know, train stock coming all the way from London to be repaired here. I mean, this can only be good. And for the people of Glasgow, this is what we need. This is the things that we need. This economy, you know, growing the economy is the answer to all our problems.
So I see, getting back to our favourite subject on the show, housing.
Yeah.
When Labour came into power, they said 1.5 million new homes by the end of the term.
Yeah.
They think it's going to be half that, Willie.
Yeah.
I think it was quite naive to come out with that number, because every house builder, you know, Steve Morgan, who's put together Redrow and Barrett, said to me, Tom, it's not possible unless there's a joined up thinking about skills, about planning, about utilities. He said 1.5 million is not possible unless they do that. And they haven't actually did that. Yeah. So, I mean, what do you think?
This is what happens in politics. People rush to put numbers out. And what they're doing is putting a big anchor around their neck, right? But, and I would agree, nobody will know better than Steve, right, about how it could go. So I hope that they get to 1 million plus. Hopefully we'll both be part of that and what we're trying to do with building houses. But it will be a stretch, and I think they'll learn from it. I think they've learned from it.
And one thing I've been looking at and actually trying to help the Scottish Government with how they can speed things up is looking at AI, where we started the show today.
Yeah.
There's a couple of countries been doing an AI portal, Willie, for their planning system. So in Scotland, we've got 32 local authorities, and there's 32 interpretations of policy. Yeah. And they're not all the same interpretations. We've got 32 interpretations. But I've been looking, and I haven't finished my investigation yet, but one AI portal for planning, and then devolve it to the 32 to for specifics there. But this would speed up planning process and get us right to the top of the league of the fastest planning applications. That could transform.
Good news for you on that one then.
Right.
Keir Starmer told us yesterday they're already trialling it in 4 local authorities in England right now.
Wow.
And it's amazing. Right. Some of the results so far are amazing.
So let's get Scotland beating England on this.
100%.
Brilliant.
What about as well, a lot of good news that Ian Murray, the Secretary of State for Scotland, has signed off a £100,000 grant for the Chamber of Commerce to fund the Brand Scotland plan.
So is that a bit of politics, Willie? Sneak in there and usurp, is that a good word? Yeah. Usurp the Scottish Government? I don't know.
All of that is politics.
Let's ask Bernard Ponson.
All of that, yes,
on
yes,
the
yes.
Go Radio
Politics show, yes. we kind of alarming story this week again, just as we're heading off to the sun. Most people were going on holidays. There's talk of a strike again, Glasgow Airport with the unions.
Oh, really?
Right, going to disrupt again. So hopefully that is not the case and that will be averted. But it's funny how the train drivers always go and strike at Christmas, and the people in aviation all want to go and strike in the
It's
summer.
called leverage, Will.
Yes, yes.
And the unions aren't daft. Now, did I remember, has Glasgow Airport changed hands?
Yeah, but it's a while ago now.
Right,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, right, okay.
But, so, well, let's hope that common sense can prevail. They sit around the table and sort it out. Because there's nothing worse than sitting in a delayed airport lounge.
Does that happen in the private bit? No, does that?
I don't know, Willie.
The Go Radio Business Show with Hunter and Hockey. Hit subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and never miss an episode.
Tom, a wee special segment to the show which we're adding. Obviously, after we taped the show, we got all the revelations of Rachel from Accountancy's new spending review, which, to be fair, I think on the face of it, well done.
Yeah, well, I would say it's positive for Scotland, Willie. Of course, the Chancellor puts out her spending review. A lot of it is to do with England, and Scotland gets the money through the Barnett consequentials, and they need to decide what they're doing with it. But what did you think overall, Willie? Because you're close to this.
To be honest with you, no, we've been having a wee go, right? But it's only by government intervention on this scale in relation to infrastructure that you really kickstart the economy. And the thing we're on about is you generate growth. So I would say I was delighted with it, and well done. Well done to Rachel and the people at the Treasury. And I know that a lot of the naysayers, it's not enough money here, and don't worry, there's a tax hike coming. At least this is good news. And I think, especially for myself and yourself, 39 billion extra to address the housing crisis is more than welcome.
Yeah. So I had a wee look to see what I thought the winners and the losers were. And of course, it's all premised with Scotland needs to decide how it deals with the extra money they get. And they are getting a big dollop of extra money. So I think, obviously, the health budget has been looked at. I actually like Wes Streeting. I think he's a good minister. I think he's doing a good job there. So in health, Willie, as we've talked about, it takes about 60% of the budget of government. It's unbelievable. So there's been a 3% rise down in England. It comes to Scotland. Scotland needs to decide how to spend it.
Yeah.
There's also good news for Scotland in that Faslane is going to get 250 million to help what's happening there.
Yeah.
I don't know if the Scottish government are welcoming that or not. They've always said if they were independent, Faslane would go. I don't know how they can say that, but that's good news. The other good news for Scotland was the Acorn project carbon capture up in Aberdeen.
Yeah.
Got to be good news, Willie.
Yes.
And the other thing, because I'm actually down south at a tech conference, and I must tell you, it's just all about AI. I listened to the founder of DeepMind, Demis Hassabis probably, and I don't think any of us have got a feel for the scale that AI is going to change our lives, our businesses, etc. But there's good news for Edinburgh University. It's going to get 750 million to do the supercomputer, which will be the most powerful computer in the UK. So I'm actually quite over the moon, Willie.
Yeah, well, I think this will give us plenty to talk about in next week's show, but more money, billions more for health, billions more for education, billions more to help the poor, right? And all I would say to Shona Robinson is, Shona, be happy we're getting 9 billion extra and maybe no complain that we're 1 billion short. Right. So let's see what we can do with that. As you say, I think this could be good news for Scotland. I think it can be good news for Scotland also for the extra money for housing. So It's brilliant. It's good. Let's wait and see. But I'm sure that when the dust settles, we'll have plenty to talk about in next week's show.
Go Radio Business Show with Hunter and Hockey. Hit subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and never miss an episode.
Tom, another great guest this week, Brian Muslek, right, who is managing director of Hugh Stirling. By the way, FM company.
FM company.
I don't know how we got on. I don't know how we got on.
I've been looking for one and I can't find any, you know.
So, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
Right, and Tom will kind of run you through what he's looking for in the format.
Well, Brian, as you know, our viewers and listeners are really trying to pick up nuggets about people's journeys. It's as simple as that. And probably people who are honest about the hard times, because everybody says, oh, how's business? Oh, it's great. Well, we're all going, well, it's not quite as great as I'm saying. But so they're looking for how you maybe overcame a problem or how you found a solution, because everybody's looking for a wee edge, you know.
Yeah.
So, but I'm always interested, where are you from? Anything in your background that kind of match out to be an entrepreneur and to be doing what you're doing. So give us a wee bit about that.
I'm for a place, Hollytown in North Lanarkshire. Grew up, went to Hollytown Primary, Brannock High School.
Anything your mum and dad in business or?
No, but they were quite old school. My dad had various jobs. He was a baker, he worked in the steelworks.
That's a bit.
And my mum pretty much stayed at home up until the point that we went to school.
Right.
At that point in time, she was just a cleaner in a primary school, and it worked for my mum and dad. And as I say, it gave us all a good very strong background that my mum was there for every day before we left for school.
Right.
So it was good.
And then when did the bug get you?
I was probably a bit late in not late in the party, but so I started working in retail part-time where I started one of my degrees. Didn't like it. It was taking me the wrong direction.
One of your degrees?
No, it was taking me the wrong direction.
How many degrees?
I started a degree in leisure management and it started going off at a tangent. I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do.
Right.
Then Morrison's had gave me a kind of supervisor role, but I wanted to go back and do
Another degree?
Another degree, yes.
Right.
So I started another degree, but I get too used to earning money. So I said, I'm going to go out and start going to the workplace and get a job.
Okay.
Safeway stroke Morrison's at the time said, we'll put you on the accelerated management programme. We want to start progressing you through the business. Okay. It go all the way down. I went to Manchester, head office, a few psychometric tests. And at that time, they were just going to dapple their finger in the market of the Morrison locals.
All right.
And they offered me to run the Scottish version of that.
Right.
Models didn't quite work for me, but they gave me another promotion within.
Right, I need to stop you. So what did it tell you about your psychometric test? Were you a leader? Were you a follower? Come on.
I'd never done one before. I'd never done one before.
Was it Myers-Briggs or Belton?
I scored particularly well, and my area manager says to me, look, you've got a decision on the road here. You stay in the main stores or you get down there, but you may go there for 3 or 5 years.
Yeah.
They offered me a promotion to stay.
Right.
So I stayed in the main stores and it gave me a decent sized store, maybe £1 million a week, 240 staff.
So can I ask both of you, because I've never had a psychometric test.
Yeah.
I'm very worried about them. But when you're recruiting, do you use them?
We, especially recruiting in the States now, the recruitment companies that we use demand that
really?
The last thing that you get. And even, I think I told you this before, I had the absurd situation of trying to hire a new CEO, and the recruitment company that we used got this professor to put the candidate through, I think it was a Myers-Briggs or a Belton, whatever, there's various types of psychometric charting, right? And after they'd done it, the recruitment company phoned me and says, okay, yeah, now the professor has to interview me.
Oh, no.
And I says, what for? He says, because he wants to make sure that this guy's personality and what he does is they going to clash with yours. And I was like, are you joking? Right, so anyway, I'll never forget, it was during COVID. And I end up talking to this professor who's in it looks like one of these Swedish saunas, a wooden cabin out in the garden, right? And saying to me, and he says right at the end, I swear to God, now this guy will know what with you.
Really? Is it going to take him on?
No, I never took him on. He says, there's no chance, you and him would be oil and water.
Wow.
So that's what happens in a psychometric.
We don't use psychometric tests.
No.
What the only kind of slight turn on that, when I got my step up to MD within my current business, I wanted to change the FD. But the FD, I brought in technical support saying I'm not as technical to go and interview. I only interviewed for a cultural fit. So when I met my guys, okay, right, this guy every other day. And then I got other people to support me on doing the more technical deep dive in the FD role, which is very well.
So I've missed a wee bit.
Sorry,
so go for Morrison's,
that
right? To
Left Morrison's, my wife, we're just about to get married, start a family. She says, like, I think you should go out and try something else. Long working hours, back shifts, a lot of them were going 24 hours, etc.
Wow.
So I went for a manager's position with a FM business called Palmaris.
Called what?
Palmaris.
Right.
So it's based in Coatbridge.
yeah. So
Right.
can I just make this point to Tom that you made there, but you will get this. People don't realise that a guy like yourself, or the guy's the manager up in the supermarket, right?
Yeah.
You've just been running a £52 million turnover business.
Aye, that's amazing.
Amazing.
Yes, it's I've always said this. You've done, let's say, 700 grand main store, 300 grand petrol, you've 20,000 customers a week,
Yeah.
and 240 staff of various skill levels, bakers, butchers, all the
It's
rest.
a hell of a
It's very fast paced, and to be honest, some of the people within that sector, you can't buy work ethic. So see if they've got that work ethic, they'll enter any process.
Yeah.
So see, even my current business, I've got a team of 4 or 5 that came with me to Palmaris, and they followed me into construction. So they literally left retail, went to FM to construction,
And they liked her attitude.
they loved their attitude. I knew they could learn process. With that drive, that willingness to succeed, the customer service offering, I took them on the journey with me.
I've said it many times. We've been obviously predominantly retail for 30 years. If you can deliver a service in retail, you can deliver a service anywhere. Right?
Like,
There's nothing like it. There's nothing like it. They'll say,
like
oh, hospitals are tough. No, I say, no. Supermarkets are 24/7, 365.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, everything's an emergency.
yeah, exactly.
Right. So we're leaving Morrison's.
So left Morrison's, went to Palmaris, joined there as a general manager. Actually, they sent me an email saying, sorry, you've been unsuccessful. But the interview went really, really well. I'm like, I seek feedback on that. So I went straight to the MD and going, can you give me some feedback on that? He's like, can you send me a letter? So his ops director had sent me a no letter because she'd some earmarked for it. And he's like, can you come back in and see me again? Back in this year.
Right.
And he overturned the decision and started.
Oh, that showed, that's a good lesson.
Aye.
So because it felt great. There's nothing I would have changed in that situation.
Don't take no for an answer.
And I emailed him, says, look, you did give me feedback. So I thought that went fantastic. So started Palmaris, went in, found my feet, sat quiet for 46 weeks and started making some changes. And we grew that business from 6 million to 9-10 million. And through that journey, I made myself up to, I got up
So what did Palmaris do?
FM, cleaning security, and CCTV, and some made their own control centre.
Retailer.
No, just in shopping centres and office spaces, etc. So it was actually bought by Willie Patterson to service his portfolio, but then we kind of grew off the back of that.
Right.
Wally Patterson, the big freelancer.
Yes,
Aye, right,
that's the
okay.
one.
Right. Big in construction.
They do
big
like quarries and stuff,
truck.
quarries and
All that
stuff like that.
In fact, I saw
Good character, Willie.
Aye,
For Bubble, aye.
way back from Edinburgh yesterday, I passed a truck, Patterson's Quarries.
Yes.
I'd never seen
Very
it before.
friendly with a great friend of the show, James Mortimer.
All right. Well,
Willie was a big pup.
So they were in the waste, they were in quarries, and they had Palmaris, which was an FM business that they had for years. They like kind of a group of various sides of business.
did you go with the business when it was bought?
No, so what initially happened is at Palmaris, Willie was offered us the chance to buy it, but then the price was going up exponentially. My MD at the time became a little disillusioned because he thought he was getting first refusal.
Right.
Then he had to write the lead in and put yourself in front of other potential buyers. And it all went a little south, and then that's when the Hugh Stirling opportunity came up.
So tell us about that.
So how was that?
It was tough. It was Hugh Stirling with a lifestyle business. I met two owners who had a property portfolio. They had a maintenance firm who done projects. I went to meet them through Chris. They were looking for an out, and they kind of had $1.5 million in mind what they wanted for the business.
So can I just ask you, at that point, what made you think, I want to own the business rather than be an employee? What was the...
That bit more autonomy and stuff like that. So and then getting to make some key decisions in the business on our own.
Right.
It wasn't a smooth transition as we'd have liked it to be. So within a lifestyle, you get a lifestyle business, and it was a 60-year-old business at the time. Everything was in paper, and it was hard to do any due diligence. And Chris, my MD, who was moving with me, says, when you go and get us ready for growth, go and do a SWOT analysis, understand what we're doing. And I get told the pipeline was great and the cash was solid. You migrate your staff over, cash becomes very, very tight. Then we have to start letting folk go. It was a very, very tough
It's a good
transition.
learning curve, though.
Yeah, it was such a hard transition.
So where was Hugh Stirling based? Where was that?
Out at Kiring Park, old Issues paint factory. They had a big manufacturing space. They actually carried their own metal workers as well, and he had quite a tight staff. So like Jamie and David knew very well how to turn over 6 million and turn over well. That was their cap. That was their niche, and they'd done it for a number of years, and they didn't deviate from the way that I did it. When we went in, obviously put a strain on cash projects, but it was a very project centric business. It was something identified very, very quickly that if projects weren't busy, the workshop wasn't busy, there was a lot of staff not to do stuff, so it was about diversifying that business to protect it. And I says, like, see that wee maintenance framework you've got over here with your Wetherspoons and your Whitbreads and all the rest of it, we need to grow that, because that's going to give us that recurring revenue, plus I'll bring 2 million FM with us, and then we started to shape the business in terms of not so project orientated. Yes, keep it because it's a nice bit to have, but we need that recurring revenue because the projects were too erratic at times, or they would get delayed. Or
so a big question for me: the eponymous business called after the founder, whatever. Why did you keep the name?
Tradition. It was 60 years old. Folk knew who they were, albeit everybody had a slightly different perception of, they're a roof business, or they're a fit business, or they're a paint and decorator. So it was tradition, and I wanted to keep that, but really, really good reputation, because when I just started, they just finished Gleneagles, a big wing at Gleneagles.
Oh, really?
And see, for such humble factory offering that they had, some of the bespoke furniture they put out was first class. First class. Really,
So the niche market.
Niche market.
Okay. Right. So you're having to deal with cash flow, you're having to deal with people, you're having to deal with strategic review of saying, right, I think this business needs to go in a different direction. I mean, that's a whole bunch of business education right in one go.
It was, and it was something that was, I thought, because you learn certain aspects of it in retail, by the time you get there, it's trying to apply that and being quite, right, we need to change this because it's no strong enough. But then there was another curveball in there. There was Jamie, the previous owners weren't buying in at 100% to their MD at the time, and he says we agreed something like, I would say, $1.5 million up front, but it was based on vendor loan notes. They get so much up front and then based on profitability. And then the 11th hour, they says, no, we need all the cash up front.
Oh, God, right.
We said, okay, we never had that. So we had to go and look for alternative investment. And we managed to source it.
So you're fundraising as well?
Yeah.
So when was this? What year?
So we managed to get the business out probably 5 years ago.
Right.
Got the business out, and our investors come in and says, Brian, I says, look, there's 400 grand of trapped cash. The building's probably worth $500,000.
So how do you go about fundraising at 11th hour?
When we tried to buy Palmaris, some of the people that was associated with that, we reached out to them and said, look, you already know us from that business.
Yeah.
Okay. So you come and look at this.
You had the network.
Yeah. So Chris had got our MD had the network, so he brought them to the table. And we navigated it for a time, but we thought it was going to be a quick transition. It wasn't. It was the best part of a year and a half to get it out.
And was any of that money VC money? Or was it private individuals?
Private individuals.
Right.
Private individuals.
Okay.
And it's still in?
Yeah, still in. So we managed to get it out. We got a plan to decorate the existing office, but the cost was astronomical with asbestos and black cables, etc. So sold that, and we moved out to a unit out in Bothwell, just behind Bothwell Services. Probably about 17,000 square foot, 12 a factory, 4 of offices, and we fitted it out ourselves.
Right.
And we'd done that during kind of COVID times because we're downturn, trying to keep folk busy.
Right.
Cleaning was still going because, again, the diversification probably saved the business at that point in time, because during COVID, if it was old Hugh Stirling, they went bust, whereas we brought FM, so they were still cleaning sites. So that recurring revenue,
still had a bit of cash.
that cash coming in all the time was the thing that seen us through COVID.
Right. So give me a plug. What kind of FM do you do now? What kind of places do you do FM?
We do 2 million of roughly the 14 million. It's like cleaning security.
Thank God.
Yes, it's cleaning security. Or probably a prime one is we do frameworks, which we do reactive maintenance and fit out for all the pub chains like Wetherspoons and Whitbread and Mitchell and Butler. And then we do actual standalone projects like visitor centres, etc. And the big entry to our market work, because again, back to the project thing, I always wanted something through the factory 3 or 4 years ago that gives me that constant churn, and I turned my attention to fire doors given what happened at Grenfell. Regulation changing coming shortly. Well, England and Wales already have it, but Scotland seem to be dragging their heels on.
So it's true that you're obviously, the timing's not right for a takeover just before COVID.
Yeah.
You've came in, I think back then it was turnover about 6 million, niche market.
Yeah.
Now I think you've grown that to about 14 million.
14 million.
Right. And so obviously your plan for growth has certainly worked.
Yeah, it will probably, what we'd rather do is, I'm not like to just chase 20 million, etc. Understand that 14, do it better, right, and add to the bottom line. But there've been a number of big factors this year, like ISG going bust, delayed a big job that we were meant to start in January.
So who's ISG?
It's a big like kind of building firm,
huge infrastructure company. Yeah.
So they
went bust.
They went bust.
Somebody again probably getting government contracts again.
That's exactly it. Another.
Did they owe you any money?
No, a small bit in the. I done the roof for the distillery in question, but we're meant to go straight in there in January. Now we're not even on site just now, so we'll still get that revenue, but it's delayed. Yeah. So therefore, I'm planning 14 million. Instead of it being a nice even spread, I might do 5 in the first month, and then probably going to be 9 in the last 7, which brings its own strain. So I had cut the overhead to deal with the first 5 months, but you can't cut it too much because you know the other 9 million's coming in that last 7 months.
So on that, so what happens is that, especially if you're doing projects like us, we'll carry a £500,000 loss in our electrical division for January, February, March, maybe sometimes in April, because we need them to do 12 months of work in the last 9 months of the year. But if we don't carry them, we've got nobody to do the work.
Right.
So that's what
just trying to balance.
And the key is to try and find something for those guys to do in those months.
And then that's when you've got the factory and they make bespoke, etc. And that's why I've always seen that nice addition of fire doors. And I know there's going to be a massive demand for that in the public sector when they eventually start, once changing the installation.
Is manufacturing now the biggest part of your business?
It contributes to the projects, and I think fire doors and the FRAs will become probably the main largest part of the business, because there was a bit in between that we were always the project, it was a bit erratic. So I heard Elmwood, who was a very similar business to us, was struggling. So we went to meet their directors, and basically they're very strong pipeline, but they ran out of cash. So I went to the liquidators with them, talked them through, we got offered a pre-pack, but it wasn't right for us because lots of service and that. But I says, look, I would love to keep that skill-based Scottish business route to market, and we took on 15.
I don't think you have any luck when you do a pre-pack.
No.
Nobody.
No, it's too much risk being on a front ton.
Yeah.
So
well done.
So we made the decision. So I took 20 staff, but I had to phase it. So over the last summer, I was going through a refurb of my factories. I thought I'll start bringing these guys in. They had clients they wanted to service, so they wouldn't lose out. And I think probably we're settled now about 16 of our staff. So we're up to about 140 staff, and we integrated it and within. And the good thing is we didn't have to go for any additional working capital. We managed to do it then.
Brilliant.
So it was a challenge.
Yeah. So what's your growth plan?
My growth plan is, again, I would probably like to retain or keep it at £14 million and really kind of start honing in the business, growing the fire door division to de-risk us, and then get a stronger bottom line.
Yeah.
Because I've got a really good team.
So this is like a masterclass in business MBA that you've had, because you've had everything thrown at you. So what would you say to our listeners and viewers? What's the key things you've learned so that you've been through it? So what kind of nuggets could you give?
It's just try to break it into manageable chunks at all times, understanding your limitations, and don't try to do too much too soon. And again, and obviously I'm here because I get in told with Entrepreneurial Scotland, and I done an Evolve leadership course, and see, having that as a key time when I did it, see that escapism to take myself out the business, and so that'd be really worth it. Really, really worth it.
Because everybody says, oh, I'm too busy. Yeah. I would love to do that. Oh, I can't make it.
Yeah.
But you're saying try and make the time.
Try it 100%. And when I done the Evolve leadership program, I really bought into it, and it was great, that camaraderie. And then Sean and Lisa and the team had tried to talk to him about the cohorts. And again, because all this was happening with my business, I just didn't feel as if I could commit to it. But again, I've just started
at Entrepreneurial Scotland.
Yeah.
Right, okay.
And then I've just started the next cohort 5 that we've been here, kind of catch-up meeting. And again, already we're starting to kind of have spin-off groups that we're talking about, right? What's your problem? What's my problem? Let's get a wee team of 4As. Let's talk it through.
Important.
Oh, it's on. But it's amazing to know that that's there, whereas if you're sitting yourself and you're trying to deal with that,
it's very lonely.
Because there's only so much you can tell your people at work, or your spouse only wants to listen to you so much. So having that out to go and
these things are invaluable. See, seriously, people underestimate. See that, being able to share stories with people, going to a scale up, seeing what other people's problems are, sharing them. Yeah. It's a lonely place being the person running a business. So suddenly you're in a room with people say, oh, that's not a problem, here's a problem.
It was amazing. There was about 11 A's in the cohort.
Yeah.
Completely different businesses, but you could do the root problem.
Same issues.
Yeah, same issues.
In the minute we've got left, give a big plug to the company.
This is your camera.
Right. Hugh Stirling, situated in middle of Scotland, great location. Focused on fit outs, and we're going to have 30,000 square foot of manufacturing space. We've invested heavily in fire doors, and we'll be ready for that growth when it comes.
Brilliant.
And how do they get in touch with you?
On our LinkedIn page, they'll be able to go in there and get correct inquiries at hughstirling.co.uk. That opens up a full host of all the services that we offer. And yes, as I say, there'll be somebody else always picked up on. I've got a direct link to that myself.
So, Wlick, brilliant story.
Brilliant.
Brilliant
Needs to
story.
be another thriving FM company.
Yeah.
Just
Well
don't get
done,
any
Brian.
retail, Brian.
So, well done.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Go Radio Business Show with Hunter and Hockey. Hit subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and never miss an episode.
Tom,
Yes.
great guest on the board you can't afford this week. We've got Rebecca Hansen, who's the MD of WYRE, and also big supporter of the programme. Thank you very much and welcome to the show.
Very glad to be here.
And thank you for giving Willie your money.
I had to give it to somebody, so.
Tell us a wee bit about WYRE, what you're doing, and then we'll pop into your question.
Yeah.
So in a nutshell, I'll run down what our company does and then kind of how I ended up in Scotland. You can obviously tell from the accent that I was not originally born here. So what WYRE does is we actually provide a salary sacrifice scheme. We're actually a platform that allows people to subscribe to vehicles.
Right.
Our salary sacrifice scheme is implemented differently than any of our competitors. I don't know anyone that implements it the same way.
Okay.
And specifically what it does is shifts all of the liability off the employer to the employee.
Yeah.
And that's allowed us to actually operate in niches that our competition won't touch.
Yeah.
So for example, we provide cars to a lot of footballers. And good luck most leasing companies providing cars to footballers. A combination of they're young and they're probably not going to stick with that same employer for a long time. Footballers move employers all the time.
Yeah.
Where our scheme says that's all good. I love when employees move to a new firm because they take the car with them. They then walk in, they're a great salesperson and say, hey, Mr. Employer, I've got this car on a salary sacrifice scheme. Can you please sign up with WYRE so that I'm not stuck paying the whole bill?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. So
Okay.
I think you should use this, Rebecca, because as a platform to advertise, because I was intrigued when my FD explained how the salary sacrifice thing worked and how advantageous it was. So
I don't quite understand. So
explain
sell
it to
to me.
people.
Sell to me as an employer.
So straightforward is that the way salary sacrifice works is instead of you paying all the employees' compensation in cash, you're going to provide them some type of benefit.
Right.
In this case, what you do is with WYRE, you pay for a monthly subscription for a car. So they want a new Tesla Model 3. It's going to be $550 a month. And you're going to say, well, instead of you getting this money in your check, $550 a month, what we're going to do is pay WYRE the $550 a month.
Right.
The advantage that has to everybody is that it comes out of their pay before you pay national insurance as an employer.
Yeah.
So it's great for employers, especially with the change in national insurance,
Absolutely.
that you're saving a wee bit of money. But
And
it's
I really
really
say it's only for electric cars.
correct
Yes.
that you can,
Right.
technically you can provide the benefit for any type of car. But HMRC realizes that you could obviously pay somebody in gold bars and say, well, I'm not paying them cash. We don't want to pay tax on it. They're smarter than that. So they say they'll charge a benefit in kind tax.
Yes.
And the benefit in kind and tax on a petrol or diesel car is quite high enough that it doesn't make sense to actually provide them a car. It's better just give them a car allowance.
So this is the government trying to encourage
Yes.
EV
Yes.
ownership.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So, and what is the advantage to the employee with the car, financial advantage?
The advantage to employees is it's still coming out of their paycheck before taxes are taken out. So whereas the employer is saving roughly £1,500 per year for every employee that's on the scheme,
Yeah.
our average employee saves about £4,500
Wow.
a year.
Yeah.
It just works out. It's almost a 10 to 12% pay rise.
Yeah.
And the beauty of it is they're getting effectively a huge pay rise.
Yeah.
You, the employer, are cutting your payroll costs.
Right.
So
well,
the only ones missing out on this is HMRC.
Right. So let me ask you, there's been some rumblings over the last that the rules were going to be changed around salary sacrifice. Is that calmed down?
They've always been tweaking the rules
Yeah.
around it. So when Labor first came in, I was certainly concerned that they would just get rid of the scheme.
Yeah.
But they didn't. They renewed it through their entire government.
Right.
They did change it. So that benefit in kind tax rate I mentioned, that's creeping up every
Yeah.
year.
Yeah.
So I suspect probably by the year 2035, the scheme will be gone.
Yeah.
That it'll be that's just another company.
Yeah, these are all incentives to get people to move to electric, and what they're doing is they're taking them away by stealth, just a bit less each year.
It is.
I'm with you.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That sounds good.
It is. It's a great scheme.
Yeah.
And I think it's one of the times the government's done something really, really well.
Right.
We don't do that in the U.S.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I think the U.S. would be advised to do is implement a scheme like that.
Yeah.
That it encourages people to get a car and switch to going electric.
So, Rebecca, how come you came to Scotland to set up your business?
So the way I ended up in Scotland was I ran a company in the US that does bespoke software development for years.
All right.
It started just after the turn of the millennium. And about 8 years ago, one of our customers asked us to open a support center in Europe. And so we looked at a lot of different places. I ended up coming to Glasgow and didn't know a lot about Glasgow, to be fair, but then started doing a little bit of research. And of course, you've got 3 great universities here.
We do.
And it's really easy for us to recruit really good software engineers. So we decided to open our software development center here.
Right.
And then as part of that operation, we said, what we want to do is we want to commercialize some of the software we've been writing in the US. And the first set of tools we commercialized was a set of tools that promote electric vehicles. So it's kind of about a whole platform WYRE is actually based upon. It was this original set of tools.
Right.
Yeah.
And the reason we ended up selling cars was that I was doing a presentation to an investor group. And I go through this set of tools. It shows all the reasons you should switch to electric. It just addresses all the people's concerns. And at the end of the presentation, the man in charge of the investor group says, that's a great presentation. So great, in fact, we all want to buy an electric car. I've got one question for you. Where do we buy it? And I'm sitting there, oh my goodness. I said, I guess you go to Tesla. He just looks at me, kind of snickers. He says, Rebecca, you are the absolute worst salesperson I've ever met. He said, you have just sold everybody a product you don't actually sell.
Yes.
And so I'm sitting there, oh yeah, I guess so.
Yeah.
And he says, I'll tell you what, if you will actually build a platform to sell electric vehicles, I will invest in that. So I got on the board with my other director and said, you know what, we're going to actually start selling electric cars. She thought I'd lost my mind.
Yeah.
But then I explained to her where I was coming from. And
So would you describe WYRE as a car type of leasing company, or are you a finance company?
combination of
Yeah.
it is that we try to come up with unique financing schemes
Yeah.
that allow us to work with markets that other people's aren't touch.
Yeah.
And I really focus on us being a subscription company,
Right.
that we're not just a traditional old-fashioned leasing company.
So it's car as a service.
It really is.
And- But the last bit of your story is you must have loved Scotland to actually come and move here.
I love Scotland. And there's the things I love about it is everybody here is so incredibly friendly. You might think I'm insane, but I actually like the weather. But I've lived in Dallas, Texas for 25 years,
Yeah.
where it's always miserable. People don't realize how miserable
really?
U.S. weather usually is.
Okay.
It's not only hot in the summer, Dallas, Texas gets colder than Scotland in the winter.
Yeah.
Right.
So there's like 2 or 3 weeks in the spring and 2 or 3 weeks in the fall where it's absolutely lovely. The rest of the time, it's absolutely miserable.
And I take it, obviously, I can only talk from my own experience where we were quite excited by the whole thing. And I was doing a lot of stupid things. I was supplying, not the most tax efficient way, supplying cars for my family and what have you. And they all worked in the business. And I said to the accountant, this is crazy. I'm better getting people to get a company car, get it through, the salary sacrifice. So I take it at the moment with this to be new, have you had a bit of a boom? A lot of people taking it up?
I'll be honest, it's shocked me how difficult it is to actually sell cars with this scheme.
Right.
That it's one of these things another cultural thing I didn't really understand when I opened our business.
Yeah.
Is that Americans know about taxes from a very, very young age.
Yes.
Because of how abysmal the U.S. tax system actually is.
Yes.
Whereas I've learned that the most people around the world don't really see taxes all the time.
Yeah.
We all run businesses. We deal with
yeah,
taxes, but the average person literally doesn't deal with them.
Can I tell you the reason why people will be sceptical? And I don't know if you've stumbled on this, but people in the UK have had their fingers burnt with, ingenious tax schemes like EBTs and the tax in relation to investing in movies. So people thought they had a scheme, but no, I don't know if the IRS is the same, but we've had HMRC just change the rules overnight and go back and say, no. When you were told by the largest accountancy companies in Scotland, no, this works, this is fine, they've got no responsibility. I'm going to come back. Hundreds of people have been bankrupt by being told that this was a good scheme, and I think that people may look at this because it's hot in the heels of what happened in the film industry, that they just need to be convinced that nobody's ever going to come back after them for tax.
And we definitely do have that. We actually have that issue with a couple of the football clubs we deal with. So we have...
Especially football clubs get butt with the EBT. Well, one in particular.
You just need to say HMRC approved.
Yeah. What is your question for the board you can't afford?
So actually my question is somewhat along those lines, is that I was hoping you could actually explain the cultural difference to me. And that,
so I've answered that. Sorry.
And that literally is that if this scheme were available in the US, it would sell, everybody would jump on it overnight.
Right.
And I don't have the same incentive that people just are, it's really difficult to get people to take up the scheme.
Yeah.
So it's like, just looking for insight.
I think you answered the other part of the question as well, is that you're right, we moan a lot about our taxes, but we do have a lack of understanding, right? It's a bit of a minefield, right? And I think if it was clear to people, from what I've seen already, that I think the salary sacrifice is a really good scheme, really good idea. And I'm certainly encouraged. I know there's a good few, the executive team in my place moving towards it. I'm certainly moving towards it with some of the vehicles that I supply from my family. So, but I think that when people get confidence that there's not going to be any retribution, right, that the tax man isn't coming back, I think you'll see this growing and growing and growing. I think it's a really good scheme.
I think it takes time, Rebecca. In Scotland, culturally, we're a wee bit suspicious. Just to start with, we
invented too good to be true.
Yeah. There's a great phrase, canny. A canny Scot, which doesn't mean you can't do it, but it's just canny with money. Like saying, oh right, is this okay? But if you can say HMRC approved, and here's a list of who's doing it, because it makes sense.
Yeah.
So I think your marketing has got to address these things that Willie's brought up.
Yeah.
And then I think it's brilliant.
Yeah, I think a good bit of marketing would be way back in the day when we were starting, we used to deliver, the company supplied a company car and then you'd all your tax to go with that. I think companies just have to go back, and they were delighted in the last few years when they've not been just giving people expenses towards having a car. I think with this scheme, companies should definitely look at this and go back to saying, we will supply you with company cars. Don't give options, just say this is the best way to do this for both us and yous. In fact, I'll have a wee look at that when I leave here.
There you go. A new customer. One good deed deserves another.
Rebecca, thank you so much for coming on the show. Pleasure.
Thank you very much.
Rebecca, brilliant. And a very inventive business idea. And I love that you love Glasgow.
Yeah. And to use a Glasgow phrase, get wired in.
There you go.
Tom, another show over in no time at all. That was unbelievable. It was so good, so good. We look forward to being back here next week. We're only a couple more shows before the summer break.
Okay.
Right.
I won't be in the studio. I'm off in my travels round the world for the next 3 months. But I will be dialing in to the Go Radio Business Show. And also now the new Go Politics Show. Go Politics Show with Bernard Ponsonby. Yeah. And when's it on, Willie? 10 a.m. on a Sunday morning, just before the business show. So your Sunday's all sorted in Go Radio. And if you're watching online, remember, hit the subscribe button. Thank you for watching.
The Go Radio Business Show with Hunter and Hockey. Hit subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and never miss an episode.